Irish immigration to Canada rapidly increased during the Great Famine, a period between 1845 and 1852. The Great Famine was a 6-year period of bad potato crops, which led to mass starvation, diseases, and death for Ireland. A statistic states that 25% of the Irish population died during this period. The Irish population couldn't afford to pay for their homes as they were making no income due to the bad potato crops, so most were evicted. Most of these people decided to immigrate to Canada, and in 1847, 100,000 Irish folks did. Due to the seriousness of the cholera epidemic in 1832, the Canadian government decided to create a quarantine station about 30 miles away from Quebec, called Grosse Ile. The quarantine station had an objective of verifying the health of all the European immigrants headed to Montreal and to only let the healthy ones continue their journey. In the late 1840s, Grosse Ile became an island of sadness, sickness, and death when the European immigrants stepped off their boat. With the little knowledge they had on the different varieties of diseases, they blamed their illness on the ships they arrived in and called it ship fever. In reality, the immigrants had typhus, a disease caused by a bacteria known as body lice that leads to fevers, chills, headaches, rashes, and delirium. This disease spread rapidly through body to body contact. The doctors they had on the island weren't qualified and were outnumbered by the sick individuals. A lot of that help, such as the doctors and the priests, caught the disease and passed away as well. Without the proper tools and treatments, most immigrants couldn't leave the island. They were shoved onto small boats as they were not enough room in the hospitals, which just increased the spread of typhus. It was said that the Irish ships that traveled back to Ireland were known as coffin ships. Other than numerous diseases that were being spread, the poor access to food and water was a major problem these immigrants were facing. The trip to Canada could have lasted anywhere between 3 to 6 weeks. The boats would have the minimum water and food needed to make the travel, usually around 3-4 weeks worth. When the trip would last longer than expected, there would be no more food supplies to feed the population. Death quickly increased. The 5 million Irish immigrants that made it to their destination went through terrible hardships during their journey to North America, only to find out that another obstacle was waiting for them in Montreal. They were alienated, seen as filthy, poor, worthless individuals, and were given the high-risk jobs no Canadian wanted. Canadians didn't see the Irish immigrants as brave individuals who survived a long, traumatic journey. They were portrayed as drunks that would harm their economy. If they were given a job, they were given a job that didn't compensate them well, that had no room for improvement, and that constantly put them in dangerous situations. The Irish were forced to live in tiny homes in very impoverished areas. There would be usually 2 to 5 families living in one small house. In their tiny homes, there was no electricity, no heating system, and they lived in areas where the sewage system was very weak. Every day they were forced to walk around in their neighborhoods in streets full of feces, dirty water, and piles of mud. The immigrants also suffered many violent acts by the natives. Canadians wanted absolutely nothing to do with these people. Discriminating against the Irish population became very acceptable. It was done in the newspapers, on the streets, and in the workforce. This went on for many years. Thousands of immigrants migrated to Canada from Ireland to seek a better life. They saw Canada as an opportunity to find great jobs and provide for their families. The young children whose parents died during the travels were adopted by French Canadian families but were allowed to keep their Irish names. The Irish Canadian population kept growing throughout the years, and today we can see a huge Irish population in Montreal.